you remember the hum of the sewing machine in the corner of the classroom, or the scent of cinnamon rolls baking during second period? Maybe you still hear the rustle of start-stiff aprons as we filed into our home ec classes, recipe cards in hand and heads full of dreams. Back then, especially in the 1960s, home economics wasn't just a class. It was a rite of passage. Whether you were learning to hem a skirt balance, a checkbook, or whip up the perfect lemon meringue pie, home ec taught us the practical magic of everyday life. So today, let's open the scrapbook of memory and revisit those charming chalk-dusted classrooms where life skills were passed down with a smile. Welcome, friends, to a stroll down memory lane. In this video, we're diving deep into the lost art of home economics, especially as it was taught and treasured in the 1960s. These were the days when school wasn't just about math and history. It was about preparing young people for real life, one stitch, one recipe, and one budget at a time. We'll explore the sights, sounds, and smells of the home ec classroom, the soft hiss of the iron, the scent of fresh banana bread, the clatter of pins in a tin. We'll remember the life lessons our teachers passed along, the skills we learned, and maybe even laugh at a few learning moments along the way. I still remember my first attempt at making beef stroganoff. It turned out more strobe-off than anything else, but that's the beauty of those years. We learn by doing and sometimes by failing too. So grab a cup of tea, settle in, and join me as we revisit the lost but lovely art of home economics. Let's begin where it all happened, the classroom itself. Do you remember stepping into your home ec room for the first time? The polished linoleum floors, those sturdy wooden work tables, the rows of Singer sewing machines lined up like little soldiers. Most of us had home ec somewhere between 7th and 10th grade. For many girls, though, occasionally a brave boy joined in. It was part of the standard curriculum. And while times have certainly changed, there was something special about those spaces designed just for hands-on learning. The classroom was split into sections. On one side, sewing stations with cubbies full of thimbles, zippers, spools of coats, and Clark thread in every imaginable color. On the other, miniature kitchens complete with gas stoves, chrome appliances, and checkered curtains that fluttered when someone opened a window. Remember the bulletin boards. Ours had cheerful posters that read, "A stitch in time saves 9, and cooking is chemistry you can eat." And let's not forget the smell part, detergent part, baked goods, and always a hint of something being scorched in the oven. One of my clearest memories is learning how to set a proper dinner table. We'd practice placing the silverware just so fork on the left knife and spoon on the right napkin, folded with care. Our teacher, Mrs. Langford, was firm but fair, and she never let us get away with a crooked tablecloth. We learned far more than just tasks. Home ec was a philosophy. It taught us patience and persistence, precision, and pride. Whether you were stitching a hem or frosting a cake, you learned that taking your time mattered. Back then, a typical project might include sewing a circle skirt, remember those? Or cooking a 3-course meal for a final grade. Patterns were often from Simplicity or McCall's, and our cookbooks included classics like the Betty Crocker Picture Cookbook or Better Homes and Gardens New Cookbook. That red and white plaid cover was practically a household staple. Do you remember your first sewing project? Mine was an apron. with a ruffled edge that nearly drove me mad. The seams were a little crooked, and I may have broken a needle or two, but the pride I felt wearing something I made myself, that was priceless. And what about the kitchen experiments? Some of us discovered a real love of cooking then. Others, well, let's just say not every dish was edible. But even when the cookies burned or the gravy clumped, our teachers encouraged us to try again. Do you remember your first home ec project? Maybe a skirt, a cake, or a budget plan? Let us know in the comments. Home economics wasn't flashy, but it was foundational. It quietly shaped us, prepared us for life in a way no textbook could. It built confidence, especially for young girls, in a time when their roles were just beginning to shift in society. Now, home ec wasn't just about cooking and sewing, it was about life. Do you remember the budgeting units? We'd be handed a fictional family profile, maybe a husband earning $75 a week, 2 kids, and a modest grocery allowance. Our job, make it all work. We'd sit at our desks with lined paper, stubby pencils, and those little yellow price books with columns for meat, produce, and household items. A loaf of bread was about 20 cents, milk around 49 cents a gallon, and ground beef maybe 45 cents a pound. We had to plan meals for the week, staying within budget. If you splurged on steak Monday, you better be serving tuna casserole by Thursday. It taught us about trade-offs, something many of us still use every time we go to the store even today. And remember, the units on household management. We learned to iron shirts without scorching them, sew on a button the proper way through the shank, not tight to the fabric, and how to mend a tear so it looked good as new. These weren't just tasks. They were little acts of self-reliance. There was even a lesson on laundry symbols, do not bleach, tumble dry low, and how to sort by colors. We may laugh now, but knowing how to wash a delicate slip or properly fold a fitted sheet felt like grown-up magic. Of course, etiquette and hosting were a part of the curriculum too. We learned how to write a thank you note, the basics of polite conversation, and even how to play hostess during a class luncheon. If you were the one pouring punch that day, you felt like the queen of the room. And while some might scoff at these lessons today, they gave many of us our first taste of independence. We were taught how to take care of ourselves, how to respect our homes, and how to contribute meaningfully to our families. It was also a reflection of the times. In the 1960s, the idea of the homemaker was held in high esteem. While the world outside was changing, civil rights marches, space races, and the British invasion inside the home ec classroom, there was a sense of calm structure. What was one practical skill you learned in home ec that you still use today? Maybe ironing a shirt, cooking from scratch, or budgeting for a holiday meal. Tell us in the comments below. Now let's talk about the real heart of home ec, the teachers. Every school had one, maybe 2 if you were lucky. And they weren't just instructors, they were mentors, role models, and in some cases, life changers. Do you remember? Yours, mine was Mrs. Langford, tall, stately, with a no-nonsense bun and a heart of gold. She wore starched blouses, had a signature brooch for every season, and knew how to quiet a room with just a look. But oh, how she cared. She'd walk from station to station, checking, stitching, tasting sauces with a careful spoon tap, and correcting posture with the gentlest nudge. When I once set the mixer too high and flung batter across the room, she didn't yell. She just handed me a sponge and said, "Now that's why we start on low, dear." Many of these teachers had gone to teachers' colleges or studied domestic science, as it was once called. They carried decades of wisdom, often passed down from their own mothers or grandmothers. And they taught more than recipes, they taught resilience. They believed in us. Even when our cakes fell flat or our seams bunched up like an accordion, they reminded us, practice makes progress. Some even gave advice that stuck for a lifetime. Mine once said, "Never go to bed angry, and always keep a cake mix in the cupboard just in case company stops by." These women, because let's face it, most were women, were the quiet backbone of our schools. They didn't seek the spotlight, but they taught us lessons we still carry in our hands and hearts, and their voices stay with us, don't they? Even now, when I'm pinning a hem or making biscuits from scratch, I still hear Mrs. Langford say, "Flour first, then cutting your shortening. Don't rush it, or it'll turn tough." Let's now open the recipe boxes and pattern drawers and take a peek at the projects and traditions that made home economics unforgettable. Do you remember the holiday crafts we used to make? Maybe you stitched a felt Christmas stocking with your initials embroidered in gold thread, or glued macaroni to a coffee can and spray painted it gold to make a vase as for Mother's Day. Simple things, but they meant the world back then. And then there were the recipes. Oh, the recipes. Some came straight from class handouts, typed on onion skin paper and smelling faintly of mimeograph ink. Others were clipped from magazines like Good Housekeeping or McCall's, with glossy photos of perfectly piped cakes and pastel gelatin salads. Jell-O salads were a staple, especially lime or strawberry, often with suspended fruit cocktail or mini marshmallows. We'd chill them in ring molds and turn them out with great ceremony, garnished with a sprig of parsley. Another classic, tuna noodle casserole. You probably still remember the ingredients: egg noodles, a can of Campbell's cream of mushroom soup, a splash of milk, and crushed potato chips on top. Nothing fancy, but deeply comforting. And who could forget meatloaf deviled eggs or the ever-popular pineapple upside-down cake? We practiced those recipes in class, and for many of us, they became part of our family traditions. In the sewing room, we stitched everything from aprons to pajamas. Some ambitious students even tackled prom dresses or baby clothes. We'd spend weeks poring over Simplicity and McCall's pattern books, at Woolworth's carefully choosing just the right fabric, calico gingham, or maybe a pastel dotted Swiss. Do you remember how satisfying it was to finish a project, fold it neatly, and bring it home to show your family? There was a deep sense of pride in making something with your own hands. And for those of us who raised children or grandchildren later on, how often did we find ourselves saying, "I learned that back in home ec"? Whether it was patching a knee, planning a Sunday dinner, or simply writing a grocery list on a budget, those lessons never really left us. Is there a recipe or project from home ec that you've passed down in your family? Maybe a casserole, a cookie recipe, or a sewing trick? Tell us your story. In the comments, we'd love to hear. So what happened to home ec? Well, over the years, the subject faded from many school curriculums. Some say it was outdated, others wanted to broaden it beyond traditional gender roles, which is understandable. But in that process, a lot of the life skills disappeared too. Still, for those of us who sat in those warm, flower-dusted classrooms, those memories never truly left. The sound of the sewing machine, the scent of banana bread in the oven, the feeling of pride when you set a table just right, they're stitched into our lives. And maybe, just maybe, it's time we brought a few of those lessons back. After all, knowing how to care for yourself, your home, and your loved ones, that's timeless. If you enjoyed this trip down memory lane, please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe for more nostalgic content, and most of all, share your memories in the comments. We'd love to hear your stories, see your old photos, and celebrate the skills that shaped a generation. Until next time, keep those recipes closed, those seams straight, and those memories alive.